I'm not a historian. I'm just a broad with internet access and occasional insomnia, so please indulge me today. After my last video where I briefly talked about slavery and Christianity, I kept wondering, why is Christianity such a big fucking deal to African descendants here in America when that is definitely not, their native religion? How did that happen? So I just wanted to get a basic understanding of how Africans here in America came to embrace white Jesus so wholeheartedly. Did I figure it out? Not really. I got tired of Googling. Should you listen anyways? Probably not. But since my opinion remains largely unsolicited, I decided to share anyways. If you have a few minutes to waste, here's what I found out. Hello and welcome to my channel. I am tickled pink to see all you lovely new subscribers, and I am very grateful and a little nervous that you choose to support my nonsensicality. If you'd like to jump on that bandwagon, go ahead and subscribe before you head out. In the comments below, let me know why you think the descendants of enslaved Africans adopted and continue to cling to white Jesus. Okay, thanks. Let's do a little quick history here to set the stage. When were enslaved Africans first brought to America? What they officially teach in schools, I assume, is that the British first brought their enslaved Africans to their Jamestown colony in Virginia in 1619. That is the USA angle of things. But, prior to the 13 British colonies getting together and securing independence from Mother England and declaring themselves the United States of America in 1776, there were and continue to be other countries operating colonies in what we know as America. There were enslaved Africans on American soil as early as 1526 who were brought to the South Carolina area by the Spanish. So Spain, England, Portugal, and maybe some other ones operated their colonies with enslaved Africans from then all the way until when slavery was officially abolished by the 13th Amendment in 1865. At that point, former British colony America, the United States as we know it, owned almost all the US continental land that we think of as the USA today. Most of the time, the US colonies weren't getting people directly from Africa, but the majority of people who were taken out of Africa came from Central and West Africa. Over 173 city-states and kingdoms in these African regions were affected by the slave trade. These city-states and kingdoms were home to at least 45 distinct ethnic groups, like the Bakongo from Congo and Angola, the Mande from Upper Guinea, the Akan from Ghana and Ivory Coast, the Wolof from Senegal and Gambia, and the Igbo and the Yoruba from Nigeria. And many, many more. And all these distinct ethnic groups had their own ways of being, their own culture, and their own religious practices. This should come as no surprise to you, but Christianity was not the traditional religion of these African peoples. Before Christianity and Islam took over as the dominant religion in Africa, African peoples had a wide range of religious practices and beliefs. Many of them were polytheistic and believed heavily in the spiritual world and spiritual entities, a lot of associations with nature and natural phenomena, things like that. It's actually really fascinating stuff, and as I researched for this video, I was saddened by how much of those cultures were lost once Christianity and Islam took over Africa. But anyways, the African peoples who were brought to America carried with them remnants of their varied religious beliefs and practices through things like song, dance, art, and storytelling. Things that aren't dependent on literacy and things that you cannot physically take away from people, because they took everything else. So the enslaved Africans practiced what they could of their traditional religions, given that a tactic used by colonial management was to mix up the African peoples so they were unable to locate enough of their own ethnic group people and maybe potentially cook up some kind of revolts. The enslaved Africans had a hard time communicating with one another because of all the different languages. It's also really hard to know exactly what religious practice and expression of faith was like for enslaved Africans during that time because they were not able to document their own reality for a variety of reasons. They were kind of busy. And let's be honest, expression of faith was not exactly high on the list of things that colonial management was interested in taking the time to document, right? The Europeans viewed all these African peoples as heathens anyways, and dismissed their beliefs altogether as nonsensical, superstitious mumbo jumbo. Trying to understand it was a waste of time in their eyes. In fact, that was one of the justifications for the transatlantic slave trade. The Europeans were thinking, these African peoples are idol worshippers, pagans, heathens. We don't recognize their religions as legit. They don't have religious texts like our Bible. They are obviously less than us. We sure can enslave these pagans, and they should feel lucky to be in our enlightened, holy presence. They can redeem themselves by working for us, and maybe, just maybe, God will take pity on their souls. They saw it as their Christian right to subjugate the heathens. So for most of colonial era America's history, enslaved Africans were doing the traditional religions and they were not Christian. And most of the people doing the enslaving wanted to keep it that way, because slavery in the Americas was not initially built solely on race. Europeans were okay with enslaving heathens, but what happens when those heathens are no longer heathens? Christian Europeans had to decide, do I want to slow down the spread of Christianity, which they somehow still believed in, by denying the heathen baptism? Or do I want to lose my human property and fuck up my money because they're no longer heathens and I have to set them free? It's a tough one. Before they could fully make up their minds, the Spanish crown over here starts offering freedom to any enslaved person who converted to Christianity, which incentivized many enslaved Africans to make a run towards Florida. The British colonies freaked the fuck out and sped up their decision-making process. The Virginia colony was the first to pass a law that essentially said, even if you do convert to Christianity, you're still a slave. Don't go thinking you're a human now that you met our God. And other colonies quickly followed suit. And like I said, I'm not a historian, but it seems like it was around that time that slavery went from being, you know, Christians subjugating heathens to white subjugating this. They clarified that if you're black, you are a slave, regardless of your religion. Once that issue was cleared up, the enslavers felt much better about converting their enslaved Africans, remembering once again their moral duty to save the heathens. There were also many missionary groups who truly wanted to just convert people left and right. And these groups varied in their support or disapproval for slavery. And these groups also often bumped heads with the enslavers. Conversion was a tiny step towards social mobility. There may have been some perks that came along with converting to Christianity, so maybe, I don't know, they got to go to church on Sundays. And missionaries sometimes taught those who converted how to read and write. That was a big no-no back then. The owners did not like that one bit. Literacy was the key to unlocking the mind, and that's the last thing that you want when you're trying to control people. They don't want these people to start asking for freedom. And initially, the enslaved Africans weren't even that interested in the doctrine of Christianity. The missionaries actually had to present the doctrine in a way that fit the traditional African religions. Jesus became a spiritual healer, and the cross was like the charms they used to, you know, ward off evil spirits. Music and song were used to spread stories about Jesus and the Bible to a largely illiterate audience. And you have to keep in mind that after 100, 150, 200, 250 years in America, a lot of the African cultures were already lost. And the descendants of those African cultures had now created their own ethnic group and their own identity. And so the traditional African religions infused with Christianity became the norm for this new ethnic group. This mashup of doctrine was carried on through song and spoken word. Words on liberation and freedom and a God that was bigger and stronger than any man, even the slave owner man. That was also a big no-no. The owners often fought the missionaries because all this talk about freedom and liberation might give the enslaved people the wrong idea. Don't get it twisted. Your freedom is spiritual, not physical. And then some shady missionaries, in an effort to, I don't know, continue to spread their gospel, made a compromise with the owners. They told them, look, we can help you keep these slaves under control by reading to them the parts of the Bible that tell slaves to obey their masters. Is that okay with you? It was more than okay, especially in the South. White people in general during the time of slavery lived in constant fear of an uprising. There was a huge population of enslaved people in the South, more than 1/3 of the total population. The owners were open to trying anything to keep the situation under control. And so more owners invited approved missionaries and preachers to come speak some sense into their enslaved people. Obey your master. Now come here, let me baptize ya. All right, that's 55 this month. I'm definitely going to heaven. The owners got a way to convince their enslaved people to just accept their lot in life, and you know, the missionaries got to keep on spreading the good word, so it was a win-win, kind of. That was the introduction to Christianity for many of the enslaved peoples. Through this lens of, you know, obey your master if you want to be a good Christian, and we'll be equal after death, but not right now. However, it did become more difficult to suppress the cries of freedom with the arrival of the Great Awakening / the Evangelical Revival. Passionate song and dance was popular during the Great Awakening period, and the emotional worship style of the revivals appealed to many of the enslaved people. catching the Holy Spirit and whatnot. It touched something within many enslaved blacks, maybe a familiarity with their religions of old. A great number of them turned up to these revival services, and Christianity began to spread in earnest amongst enslaved populations. Black people started their own churches and became preachers in the colonies. And as their passion for Jesus grew, so did their passion for freedom. It was within these churches that black people started plotting and scheming and depending on their new Christian God to deliver them from the evils of slavery. And the rest is history. I don't know if I learned anything brand new through the process of putting together this video. And I do understand that spirituality and the church community is what got to the enslaved Africans through their 300+ year ordeal in America. I understand how they needed that hope and that spirit to mentally and emotionally survive the trauma. I concede that it may have been a necessary tool for survival. My best summarization is that over the course of centuries, Christianity has become a part of Black identity in America. It just is. A lot of aspects of many cultures are not practical, but we do them anyways. Even you do. However, those Black folks who are Christian have to ultimately live with the fact that we're a slave owner from 1620 to time travel to 2020 America and see Christianity flourishing in Black communities. They'd probably smile and say, see, it worked. We fixed them. So tell me, what do you think about my half-assed research? Is there anything else about the adoption of a white Jesus by Black folks that I'm missing? How do you think Black Christians justify adopting Christianity as a people? Let me know what you think in the comments below. As usual, people, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on your notifications so you get an alert when I post my next video. Thank you for watching and I will see you next time. Bye!